Welcome. These will be my thoughts on The Flash, Season 1, Episode 14, Fallout. The episode is rated TV PG, so will this video be? There will be spoilers for the Arrowverse leading up to and including this episode. And other than the video recommendations I'm going to dive into momentarily, this video will be TV PG just as the episode is. So, the Tabernacle, no one is going to Israel anymore. We gonna be alright. Imagine living in a state that you have to apologize for. Haryana Hook, does fandom even know what black art is? Auntie Elaine, open letter to ContraPoints. And Rev says Dazu, VTuber says the darndest things about movies/TV by Movies with Mark. Did I already mention that I love this episode? I certainly do. And yeah, I think I'm going to try to keep it chronological. And yeah. So, really appreciate that they do indeed hit the ground running. We are immediately back to trying to outrun the blast, and we find out, no radiation. The hazard suit? Crap, that's not what it's called in Half-Life. Never mind. Let's just mentally pretend that I remember what it's called. No Geiger counter noise there. And it is clever because they didn't say that they were confident that there would be, just that was a potential thing that could be, and yeah, wonderful to have so much Victor Garber in this. Yeah, so strange to think. This is maybe 9 years after Alias. Although I guess it wasn't, what was it, 4 or 5 years after The Town? But yeah, still absolutely amazing. Yeah, aging like a fine wine. And I think, let's see, I guess that pretty much covers the, yeah, so they get them back to the lab, and, yeah, appreciate the tension between, I mean, you think your roommate is bad, try sharing a body with him. And it's also one of those things you just gotta have jokes like that, because it's this is such a ridiculous concept. I'm glad that they're playing it straight. They're not trying to tone it down, but you gotta then have something, for example, some humor about it. Otherwise, it becomes a bit too much, at least in live action. Now, right, I guess I will very briefly note that's fairly shortly after, Cisco once again appreciates the awkwardness of walking in on the two kissing. If you thought this episode had too much kissing, there's at least 2 separate scenes with kissing fiancés. The deleted scene actually also has kissing, so maybe, I don't even know if this one would have run overtime, or maybe someone was just we're testing the limits already here. There's only so much cuteness they can tolerate in one episode. And let's see. I guess that yeah. So yeah, I guess I'll just very briefly note. So yeah, the deleted scene. They talk about how the clothes situation is going to have to be resolved, and she reveals that she's really missed him by saying there's something, she's really hungry for, and it's implied to be something that I'm not going to say out loud because I'm keeping it PG, but that does let me, right, and there's also a reference to him wanting pizza, so that's part of what, part of the point of that scene. And I did think it was a little bit out of nowhere that, oh, pizza, he usually hates pizza. Obviously, if the deleted scene had been in the episode, we'd be like, but Ronnie doesn't. But let's see. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. this episode, this deleted scene, like I want to say, it was the episode before this one, wasn't it? Or was it before? And anyway, no, yeah, it must have been, yeah. The episode before this one, with the at first, very successful second date. Yeah, it's in both cases, it is a young woman who initiates, and the narrative does not frame it as a negative, acknowledging that women do, I'm not saying all, but a number of women do, think about things like that, want things like that, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Like, it's just this ridiculous, yeah, I can't really get into detail, but you probably know what I'm going to say because I say it a lot in these videos. I can't say it on a PG. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, I guess the very next thing was when there's yeah, it was really great to see their sort of reunion. Everyone happy to have one of these two back, and then the slightly more tense thing, and let's see. I guess that does bring us to, yeah. So Joe tells Barry, and I love, once again, just he's got such a wonderful attitude. By the end of the episode, he's like, you know what? This means I have a second chance. This is not, definitive proof that I'm gonna fail. And that genuinely is, like, we're only halfway through the first season, but that is a very compelling play. I do not know how long before they're going to have it play out, but I mean, yeah, I definitely get the sense that we are going to see at some point on the show him, move so fast that he travels back in time and attempt to save his mom. And I genuinely don't know if they are going to have that work, because this episode points out, does that mean a new timeline, or does it mean, yeah, is it Terminator, or is it Back to the Future? And let's see that. But yeah, that was also a great scene, them explaining it, so and making sure that it was accessible to people who maybe don't read comic books or the like, because, like, as a comic book reader, it's like, yeah, obviously those are some of the options. And hypothetically, if you are averse to reading comic books, honestly, okay, so I'm acknowledging that he's problematic, but Philip K., whose last name starts with a D, also fantastic stuff about, it's not always time travel, sometimes it's like time manipulation, but a Google search will let you know what stories deal with these two things. And yeah, I was very impressed by, he might be my favorite sci-fi author, actually. And yes, you don't have to tell me, obviously Asimov is also really high up there. Anyway, I guess that pretty much, if you haven't read iRobot, it's so much better than the movie, I cannot even put it into words. And I tried once. But let's see. I guess that does bring us to, yeah, I really appreciated that it's unclear by the end of this episode what theory they're going with. And yeah. And yeah, after they have the conversation, he goes to talk to Stein. And we have the thing about the pizza. And yeah, this the thing about, yeah, we find out that, she has no intention of letting him out of her sight. So I guess clear Clarissa's calendar. She's gonna have to, but yeah, and he, like, yeah, jumps into frame practically, and of course asks the question, "What's his part? I mean, is that the pizza guy?" And yeah, you know, Barry's like, I'll get a pizza. Sure. That's not gonna take any time, you know. And I love how casual it's become. You know, it's just because he's not even like, can you distract Clarissa? It's like she knows about this metahuman stuff by now. You know, it's just okay, here, pizza. And as a fellow pizza lover, I can attest to, if you bring, you know, if yeah, a pizza, like he didn't even specify. He didn't even say, oh, make sure there's not the this on it. Like, I don't know. I know some people don't like pineapple on pizza. It's like, it's pizza. It's been a while, but last time I had pineapple on pizza, it was delicious. Pizza is one of those things where you really don't need to particularly specify. Well, I guess the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles don't like anchovies on theirs, but I am too old to still remember that because I first read it 30 years ago. Anyway, the let's see. I think that does. But yeah, the thing about, you know, he barely gets any pizza into his mouth before Barry has said, you know, time travel, and he's just smash cut, and we see, you know, these are just a few of the thoughts, you know. Yeah, and let's see. I guess the next thing. Yeah, I'm actually struggling a little bit to remember what the very next thing was, but it was maybe. Is that when Ronnie and Kate are out and there's an attack? And that was also very nicely done. You know, we just see the couple of laser sights, and yeah. And I really appreciated that they did show, you know, okay, what they're shooting now is not lethal bullets. It's these like trank darts, you know, because that enables them to squib up the place and get away with it on a PG. Because like this would be too intense for, you know, otherwise. But and it also just makes sense. Like they're trying to figure out what, you know, how Firestorm works, and I think that does pretty well cover. Let's see. Yeah, very very tense and suspenseful as they, you know, flee the restaurant, and of course, you know, they were waiting outside. It was, you know, that was part of the idea there to yeah. And Barry does show up, but of course Elling has, you know, he had a weapon developed to stop him. And considering that it's these like quill things, I have to imagine he got this idea from Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, you know, both of them are speedsters. And seconds are like hours to him. Anyway, I think that does. Yeah, and it was also really cool that, you know, Flash does manage to knock out a bunch of the military guys, and they escape from there. And Eiling says, "We are at war because if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail or a quill." And I think that does. Yeah, I think the very next thing is when is maybe around here that Joe apologizes for, you know, he's worried about putting more on Barry, and you know, Barry explains that he appreciates it, you know, knowing it. He feels he should know. And yeah, I, you know, once again, this kind of pro communication, pro empathy message, you know, absolutely love it. You know, we're literally watching two guys have an honest conversation about feelings, and it's not played for laughs. There's no like, you know, we gotta, you know, let's go grab a beer together, son. It's just two guys talking about, yeah, and yeah, we gotta normalize that. I believe the very next thing is yeah, so right now I remember the thing I've been forgetting. Yeah, so we have a couple of things of Iris, you know. Yeah, you know, first the guy walks up to her, and you know, he asks Danish. And I'm like, how did you know? Most people actually do think I'm American. Oh, you meant for her. Okay. Getting all Dexter, bringing Danish to make someone else do what they say. But yeah, yeah, Iris, that is something that might happen when you work with journalists. They might ask questions, and she does also deep down want to know the answers. So yeah, she shows up to cook, and everyone forgot, and yeah, so they make the claim that Ronnie is Sam and Kate's cousin, which, like, yeah, because yeah, good idea to keep Iris from knowing too much of what's going on. And meanwhile she's like, have I seen you before? You look familiar. Are you Oliver Queen's brother, or only in real life? And let's see. Yeah, later on she compares to the picture, and oh, he went home. Where did he live again? See, she's a better reporter than the other guy, at least at first, gave her credit for. Yeah, that is, of course, if you think someone is lying, asking them the same question more than once when there's been just enough time that they may have forgotten the lie. That is a tried and true method for, among others, journalists. And yeah, by the end, she says that, yeah. So that is concerning. Anyway, I think the next thing is right, and it is also clever. It's just a throwaway line, but yeah, no reason they couldn't stay in Iris's old room. Joe hasn't turned it into a gym, has he? It's not like she's using it. And I think the next thing is, yeah, so Dr. Wells goes to talk to Eiling and notes that he knows that Barry is the Flash, and says that they should work together. And I thought they did a really great job. Like, I wasn't entirely sure if Wells really was going to, but he drugs Stein, and yeah, he is willing to do really extreme things for the cause. And the next thing, yeah, and very clever. He's like, listen, all that's hurt is my pride. I'm in no condition to fight off military, which, like, yeah, no one's, and yeah. I think that does. Yeah, really, really clever about the thing of, so both of them feel really cold, and yeah, the thing about cutting, which, like, I appreciate, understandably Kate is like, we have to stop this, and I think it might be Barry who's like, he knows what he's doing, this is not yeah, and that is genuinely so freaking clever, just writing where. And there is this is a scene you could very easily parody if there was, like, if he misspelled where, and then Stein was like, I'm not going to dignify that with an answer, try again, and smash cut, and eventually where is misspelled like 9 different times. Anyway, and yeah, so he taps the for the Morse code, very, very clever. And I like the thing about, like, well, maybe that's where they're keeping the aliens too. And yeah, so they do manage to free, right, and holy crap, like, genuinely absolute last second, he even fires the gun, like, just a fraction of a second after Barry has yeah. And very clever, the thing about, so they bring the separating device, and both of them go, And it is that thing of like, well, with both of them, maybe there's a better chance that Stein won't die, because wouldn't that also kill Ronald? And yeah. Then let's see. I guess. Yeah, there's another. Let's see. That's when we have the what did they say? Phosphorus, thing. Very clever. And my eyes lit up the moment that they said, you're gonna have to create a vacuum. I love how comic booky this is. Just yeah, and it's so casually as well. Once again, they don't feel the need to. Sometimes when something gets a little too much, they'll make a joke, but it's not every time. There's no joke about the vacuum bit. Uh, let's see. I mean, I guess afterwards that was a lot of running, but that's not really a joke about it being comic booky. And yeah, the let's see. I forget what it was called, but there was also this thing that like disables temporarily the storm firepower, and Barry thankfully is ready by then. But yeah, and I guess that does bring. So yeah, they do indeed all three return home, and yeah, I also really appreciate the thing about, Ronnie is thinking, oh, maybe they should run away. And Kate is like, I mean, we're doing more than just the metahuman hunting, we're helping people in a new way. And yeah, the things have changed over those 14 months. And that again is sometimes people grow apart and sometimes they can find a way. By the end of this episode, they do say, no, we'll make this work, but we do both have to, the fact that he wants to run away right now, doesn't really work for her. And that is an actual relationship thing, and it's not exclusively for romantic partners, but, at some point in your life, you might have to have this conversation. And yeah, it appearing in a TV PG show, that's really, really great, because, the sooner you learn this, the better, and I guess that does bring us to, let's see. Yeah, and clever to hide from Eileen, although I guess by the end of the episode that is no longer necessarily necessary, but they don't know that, and they might not find out right away that Eileen is gone, and it's also not impossible that someone else is also going to, maybe someone else is going to try to continue that. But we get Grodd. That just, oh my God, fantastic. The voice, pitch perfect. They didn't show the animation for terribly long, but that's probably like a budget thing, and also good build-up. It looked so freaking good. Absolutely loved it. And yeah, and we also, we had a line earlier about, last time I used this, it was on a gorilla, and that, again, like, immediately, I mean, for that, I don't think you even need to have read the comics, because Grodd was directly, what's the word, referenced earlier. And yeah, I think that does pretty much cover everything. Yeah. By the end of the episode, Stein does still like to call Ronnie Ronald, but in his defense, at least he stopped giggling and following it up with McDonald.